Happy holidays, everyone. It's Jeff Zito and another episode of the Celebrity Jobber Podcast. Thanks so much for checking it out. Streaming on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen to podcasts. Please subscribe. Would love a 5-star rating and leave a review. You can check out past episodes online at celebrityjobber.com. This is a really, really great guest. I got to tell you, one of my favorite movies ever is Summer School with Mark Harmon. Freddie Shoop, such a great movie. I'm not so sure that Mark puts it up with, some of his best acting, but I loved it. Mark's mother, a very famous movie star and model, Elsie Knox. His dad, one of the greatest athletes of his time, Tom Harmon, won the Heisman Trophy with the University of Michigan back in the 40s. His dad then went to fly planes in the military, became an actor and a sportscaster after that. So not a real typical life for Mark Harmon, who was also a college athlete. The path that he took is definitely an unorthodox one, and we're going to talk about that. Plus his big break, his first job, and a lot of jobs that he's had, both in and outside of Hollywood. By the way, he's married to Pam Dauber. Mindy from Mork and Mindy, Nanu. Actor Mark Harmon is my guest this week on Celebrity Jobber.
Hi, Jeff.
How are you, man?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm good, man. I'm good. A fan of Michigan football. I am a fan of Old 98. Do you root for Michigan? Do you root for UCLA? Who do you root for in college football?
I follow UCLA just because I have that pass. But, you mentioned Michigan. I follow them, too, and that's because I have a pass there with my dad as well.
One of the greatest Michigan player of all time, I would have to say. The path that he took in life, it rubbed off on you. Obviously, correct? Or
you learn what you learn, or you pattern what you pattern. But a great dad, and my dad was one of many kids, and believed in working hard for things and fighting hard for things, and he always was so appreciative of that trophy. He talked about that. He talked about how it became part of his life, like almost separated only by a comma. In other words, his name was never mentioned without comma, recipient of the Heisman Trophy. It became like part of the explanation for even who he was or defined him from that point on. But he was always so appreciative of that honor and tried to represent it, highly his whole life.
So growing up with him as your dad, is that difficult? I mean, everybody's trying to be better or more successful than their parents were. Was that tough for you growing up with your dad being Tom Harmon?
I never actually thought about it. It's just his dad, and he was traveling a lot. He was broadcasting on weekends and doing the local news both at 6 o'clock and 10 o'clock every night from different stations in Los Angeles. So maybe I'd get some time with him late on a Sunday afternoon if he got back from wherever he was traveling from broadcasting from. But he was a busy guy and did a lot of different things. So a terrific dad and certainly appreciative of that. But as far as picking up a football or trying to emulate him at all, I was just a jock. Whatever season it was, I was picking up that ball or whatever it was that time to pick up and trying to do that, and the football thing just kind of followed me. So that became what ended up being, my focus in college, and certainly directed me toward UCLA and that education. So I look at the path that my dad put forward, and I'm appreciative of that, just because in some ways it set goals in a way at a time where a lot of people weren't thinking about that.
So, Mark, you mentioned being a quarterback of UCLA. At any point in time, were you thinking about the NFL? What were you thinking when college was coming to an end? Were you thinking about getting into acting, or did you go into another direction altogether?
No, I was selling shoes. I wasn't at all thinking about acting, and I had been around this business a little bit, but for the most part, I was doing what we were all doing, just trying to figure out what was next after college and what I was going to do with an education. It's an interesting thing to go to a school like UCLA and pick a path, a field of study, and then try to put that to some kind of use in your life, which is not always easy,
No, definitely not. So were you thinking about professional football at any point, or was that just completely out of the cards for you?
I don't remember thinking about it much. As a kid, like I said, I whatever season it was, I was playing a sport, and football. I always look at football as like the first sport of the season. That's what you did in the summertime, and then it rolled into the fall. And I always looked at that and thought, I'd like to try to ride this or do this as long as I can and see what happens. I actually, in high school and stuff, I had much more success in baseball than I did football, but I hadn't played much football going into college. I played a little bit my junior year, and I broke my elbow, and that was it. And I didn't play at all my senior year. What I did as a freshman in college was just go after the team,
Right.
The Celebrity Jobber Podcast with Jeff Zito.
So, Mark, so many jobs, right? When you get into the field that you're in now, okay, all the movies, almost 20 years NCIS, which I can't believe it's that long. Executive producer, a couple of books, which I hear you just had a book came out, and then there's another book, Ghosts of Honolulu. Is that right?
That was the first one. That was a year ago, a year and a half.
And then Ghosts of Panama is the new book. First of all, tell me a little bit about writing a book / being an actor. Are they two different things? Are they at all connected?
Well, I don't know. To be honest with you, I know that as an actor, you're obviously used to working with writers, and then maybe in television it's more daily, more apparent. It's not that you're actually writing the show; you're not. But the shows I've worked on, writers and actors talk to each other and share ideas. And so is there a correlation with that? Yeah, I think there is. Does it always happen? No, I don't think it does. But I never thought about any of this about wanting to be a writer at all. I kind of got into this thinking there was a story to tell, and certainly stories that people don't know about. And if they're interesting to me, then maybe they'd be interesting to someone else. The difference between Ghosts of Honolulu, which was the first book, that was, basically Pearl Harbor, 1940. So you're not talking to anybody current or alive. You're doing that from research. But this second book, Panama, Leon Carroll, my partner, he was there, and everybody you're talking to is someone you can, ask a question of and get an answer from.
Right.
The personal part of that has been a real change, and that's been interesting too. So, will there be more stories? Yeah, probably. But there's certainly stories to tell, and whether we'll tell them or not, I'm not quite sure. But there's an opportunity to do that.
Celebrity Jobber.
What is it, do you think, about NCIS and why? 20 years is a long time, playing the same character. Is it the subject matter?
Yeah.
Is that why people are so into it? Is that why the rabid fan base exists? I know, like podcasting, like the biggest podcasts are true crime. What do you think it is that really makes people love NCIS?
I don't know. I know that when you look at an opportunity, a job opportunity comes down the line, and someone says, "Well, this is a pilot, or this is a TV show," or as an actor, I don't know what you look at as the long ball on that. You say, "Well, what is this going to be something that employs me for 6 months or 3 months or 1 month or a year?" Or maybe in television, you're thinking, if I get 6 months out of this, that's going to be gifted. You don't ever think in terms of 20 years. That's like Ozzie and Harriet stuff.
Right.
That's like unheard of. The fact that this show has found the audience it has for as long as it has is a credit to the storytellers, and certainly to the fans out there who follow it. I don't know. The longest show I had ever done prior to NCIS was like 4 or 5 years. I think that was on Chicago Hope or St. Elsewhere, one of those two. But I think, for me, I've just always thought about it as the job. You know, it's you're going in for whatever it is you're going in for, whether it's a TV show or a movie or a play or whatever. As an actor, you're really in pursuit of the singular job. You know.
Tell me about your very first job. Do you remember what it was? Outside, doesn't have to be in the business, or it could be whatever it was. Very first time you collected a paycheck. What was it for?
Selling flowers.
Oh,
delivering flowers.
Delivering flowers, you said?
Delivering flowers. That's it. Yep.
What? How old were you?
16.
Okay. And then you mentioned when you got out of school, when you got out of UCLA, I said, what was your first job? You said you were selling shoes. Is that true? Were you a shoe salesman right after college?
Yeah, even before that, I was selling advertising time. I was basically a radio buyer, worked in radio for a couple of years, and then from there went to selling shoes. Yep.
So whereabouts did the switch come? You're in the working world. So at what point are you like, selling shoes, being in advertisement isn't for me, I'm going to switch gears and go into acting?
I was on a job selling shoes. I was getting on a plane to go wherever I was going. I was traveling all the time doing that job. And I was sitting next to a guy on the plane who, even before we took off, was complaining about, at the time, he was like 30 and I was in my 20s, so I thought he was pretty old. But he was talking about how miserable he was in his job and how he was just trying to reach retirement at 60. And I didn't really say anything. I just listened to him. But I kind of thought at the same time, well, I kind of feel the same way, right? I don't know where it's going, but for whatever reason, when I got home from that trip, I drove straight up to the offices where I worked, and I handed in my resignation, or my, that I was leaving in my 2-week notice, whatever. And I just said, I'm going to pursue this acting thing. And I went home and I told my parents, and they both thought I was nuts. They were supportive, but they both thought I was nuts. But that's kind of how it had to happen for me to put me in that mindset to stay on the attack of this business or this job pursuit or whatever it was I was trying to go after. I didn't know how to do it. No one had any, there wasn't a book you could read to say this is what you got to do. Or I just knew that I needed to try to work, and I needed to try to get an agent, and I needed to go to acting class, and I just went about trying to do that.
I wonder what that guy on the plane is doing now, and whether or not he knew he was sitting next to you and ended up being a pivotal part in your decision-making to become a famous actor. That's an awesome story. That's an awesome story. Was there ever a big break?
I did a lot of little jobs, and sometimes little jobs turned into memorable jobs. And I had one of those, and I got lucky. I think luck is part of it too. You got to have that on your shoulder a little bit, and there's so many. The thing I remember from the beginning of this is you're in class and you're with so many talented people, so much more talented than yourself actually, and you look at that and you go, these people are so good and they're not working. What is going on? Opportunity is what it is, and you got to be able to take advantage of that. And that's part of that. Maybe is competitive, and part of that is about tenacity and the not letting go of that. There are certainly so many more talented actors and people that I was in class with who, they'd stand up in front of the room and do a scene, and that you just kind of sit there and go, wow, can I ever measure up to that? And then they're not working, or if they are working, it's not in that kind of material. There's a lot of luck to it, certainly, and opportunity, but I think the tenacity part of it is the not give up part of it is as important as any of it.
The Celebrity Jobber Podcast with Jeff Zito.
Man, I love the whole story, from, your dad being old 98, your mom's a supermodel. I mean, just a great story. And even through this, you're telling me mom and dad didn't support your, dream of being, or your new path of being an actor, and they were in the business, and they said, what, are you crazy? I just think it's just a great story. And then, of course, the book. I want to just mention the book here. Ghosts of Panama. It scares me to even think about writing a book. Ghosts of Panama, out everywhere now. Mark Harmon, I'm a big fan of Mr. Shoop, and I don't care what anybody says about that movie, but that's one of my favorite movies ever. So Summer School will never go away as far as I'm concerned.
Well, give that credit to Carl Reiner.
Right on. Well, you did a great job. And again, pleasure talking to you. Thank you so much.
Pleasure. Thank you.
All right, think about this for a minute. This guy is an A-lister, okay? Mark Harmon has played the same role on NCIS, the role of Leroy Jethro Gibbs, for over 20 years. He's been in so many movies and TV throughout the years. His father, unbelievable athlete, one of the greatest athletes of his time. Tom Harmon won the Heisman Trophy back in the 40s for the University of Michigan, played a little bit in the NFL with the Rams. He was a military pilot. He was a sportscaster, an actor. Mark's mother, Elsie Knox, also an actress, model. And Mark, actually an athlete. He said he was a better baseball player in high school. But, was in college, played quarterback for a small community college and had a great season, became an All-American, and then got a scholarship to UCLA and played quarterback and graduated from UCLA, which I thought was interesting. He didn't seem like he had aspirations to go pro. Maybe UCLA, I don't think they were very good at the time, so maybe his stats weren't there. I mean, when you have a dad like Tom Harmon, who was just like the world's greatest athlete at the time, I was trying to get him to comment on that pressure of being his son, but he didn't really talk too much about the pressure for sports. He was just like he was dad, and that's what he saw him as. I just think the most amazing part of the entire conversation is that of Mark's out of college. He's not playing professional football. He's in the working world. Said he was selling shoes, and he was in the advertising game, and here he is on a flight going to wherever he's going for business. He happens to sit next to some guy who is bitching and complaining about his job and just trying to get to 60 years old, trying to get to retirement. And he's telling me the guy is like 30 years old. And that left such an impact on Mark's life. I mean, can you believe it? Just listening to this guy, I don't even know if they were engaging in conversation that much, but he's listening to this guy complaining about his dead-end job. That motivates Mark to go to the office and hand in his 2 weeks notice and then pursue his dream of acting. And I thought it was great where his parents said, "You're nuts. What are you doing?" I mean, at that point in time, I don't know how serious his acting really was. When you're a college athlete, you don't have a whole lot of time to be doing plays or in theater. So that's why I made the comment earlier, like, did this guy, wonder who this guy on the plane is, what he does today, and if he realized he was sitting next to Mark Harmon on an airplane, and pretty much him complaining about his crappy life and job is what made Mark Harmon flip careers and pursue being an actor. I just can't get over it. I thought it was a great story. And when you hear Mark Harmon telling that story, it's almost like he was fondly remembering it as he was telling the story. You know what I mean? Man, I thought that was very, very cool. And of course, a lot of great guests in the past, which you can check out on celebrityjobber.com. Follow on Instagram, celebrity_jobber_podcast. I think I've been saying it wrong for a long time. Also, youtube.com/@celebrityjobber. Streaming on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen to podcasts. Please subscribe. Would love a 5-star rating and leave a review. Whether it's Christmas, Hanukkah, Kwanzaa, Festivus, whatever it is you celebrate, I hope it's a great one. Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays. I'm Jeff Zito, and we'll see you again next week with another episode of Celebrity Jobber.